Shalom, Yasharallah, Shalom. Kalalayim, Allahayanawa, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great Muslim who teach one and rule well, who taught me this truth. Peace and salutation to the Akim, the fellow laborers, the hopeful elect, pushing this truth at risk of their own lives to at the four corners of the earth. And to the awkward listening, and learning, and sincerity and truth, Shalom. It's your brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin camp, here with another lesson. And wanted to open with a scripture. Yeah. And these ruling class elites, these Edomites, right? These banking families, they have a perpetual hatred for Jake, man. Right? Psalm chapter 83. Verse 2, and it reads, For lo means look, thine enemies, whose enemies? The children of Israel, right? Yahawah Bahasham Yawashi, right? Make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head, right? And who hates us? Yasharallah, the sons of the power. Israel being a people for a place. You so-called indigenous, you so-called Latino, you so-called Negro. Who hates us? Let's read on. Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Crafty. Right? They have taken crafty counsel. Right? Our enemies. Right? Crafty. In the Hebrew.
Strong's H6191. Aram.
To be subtle, be shrewd, be crafty. Right? Subtle and shrewd, to be prudent. Right, so they've taken subtle, shrewd counsel. Cunning, usually in a bad sense. Deals subtly, right? This is how Esau Edom rolls, man. Right? This is who they are. Right? They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? Who is the Lord's people? The Israelites. Right? And consulted against thy hidden ones. They've hid the truth of who we are, and they've hid the truth from the world. Salakia, they've hid the truth of who we are from the world, and they've hid the truth from us, the Israelites. Israel being a people before a place. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? And this goes right back to the birthright, man. Right? So Esau, Edom, right? These ruling class elites, right? The wicked who rule the world, they hate Jacob. For they have consulted, verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, right? Confederate. They're clicked up, man. It's a group agenda. All these other nations, beginning with Esau, Edom. Verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom, right? The houses of Edom, Esau, Edom. We know who they are. We know who they are. So-called white man, these ruling class elites. These banking families. And the Ishmaelites, right? The so-called Arabs. Of Moab, so-called Chinese. And the Hagarenes. That's going into Ham. Some Hamites. Right? But the reason for this lesson, baby formula shortage hits lower income homes and families of color. Right? I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm going to hit some highlights. With baby formula increasingly hard to find on store shelves, concerns are growing for so-called black and Hispanic parents and low-income families who have less access to the products and in some cases greater need than their so-called white counterparts. Right? right? Right. And who are the so-called black? Who are the so-called blacks? And who are the so-called Hispanics? Right? Jacob, man. Right? All this applies to Jake. And low-income parents who do happen upon formula are less likely to be able to purchase a little extra. If you are in a situation where you have limited resources available to you, even searching for formula and looking around or getting formula online is difficult. You're definitely leaving folks further behind, said Tiffany Dolanson. I predominantly see so-called black and so-called Hispanic families at Fairhaven, and I'm just seeing that on a daily basis. Families are really struggling, she said. Socioeconomic factors sometimes play a role in the ability to breastfeed. If a mother has to return to work quickly, she may be less likely to breastfeed, right? And curses, man. Curses. What's that scripture subject to payments? It's in Sirach, chapter 2, I believe. These are the curses, man. Sirach. Subject to payments. Sirach. Is it in 2? Bear with me. Slakia. It's in Baruch. Baruch 2. 23rd verse, I think. Baruch 3 verse 8. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, right? So we're still in our captivity. We're POWs, man. We're prisoners of war, right? Scattered. You look at the word scattered as diaspora, right? For a reproach and a curse, right? We're under the curses. We're proverbs and bywords, right? And to be subject to payments, right? Got to pay for everything. Rent, fees, taxes, groceries, water, clothing, according to all the iniquities of our fathers, right? Our forefathers, which departed from the Lord our power, right? So we're under the curses because we went after idols, man. Okay? Exodus 1, verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, right, because Joseph had rapport in the eyes of the previous pharaohs to this pharaoh. Right? Remember, Joseph was held in high regard to the pharaoh that was in rule at the time of Joseph. So this new pharaoh, right, and this is after the time of Joseph. This new Pharaoh, he didn't business about Joseph, man. Right? It says he knew not Joseph. He didn't business. He didn't care. He didn't care who he was. Right? Verse 9. Exodus 1 verse 9. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Right? This is the Pharaoh. This is the Pharaoh speaking to his council, the Egyptians, his council. Right? Verse 10. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Right. So what was this Pharaoh saying? Let's deal with them. Let's use crafty counsel. Right. Let's be subtle. Let's be shrewd. Let's deceive. Verse 11. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Right. So the Israelites were under hard bondage, man. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. Right. And wherever Jake goes, Jake won't have children, man. Jake won't pop women and have multiple seeds, multiple children. That's Jake. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. Let's look at this word rigor. Right? Hardcore bondage the Israelites were under, man. It means harshness, severity, or cruelty in the Hebrew.
Strong's H 6531. Perech. Perech.
Right. In the Hebrew. Harshness, severity, cruelty, perech. Right? An unused root meaning to break apart, fracture, severity, cruelty, rigor, right? Right? Hardcore bondage, man. Egypt means Mizraim, which means house of bondage. Right? Mizraim.
Strong's H 4714. Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim.
Right, and we are yet this day in the land of our captivity. Land of the Copts. Right? House of bondage. Right? Right? And we are yet this day in our captivity. We are in America the Great, Babylon the Great, spiritual Egypt, spiritual Sodom. Right? Let's continue with this scripture. Verse 15, and the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah. Right, and let's look at this. This is the deceptive, the crafty counsel, the deceit, the deceptiveness that the Egyptian Pharaoh is going to use on the children of Israel. Right, on what examples of that do we see today? You know, Planned Parenthood. Right. Right, pestilences in J communities. Right. Look, clear as day, they're saying this baby food shortage is affecting Jake. Right, a lot of our families don't necessarily have jobs that allow for parental leave, and so they have to go right back. Right, they have to go back because they're subject to payments, man. Maybe they took unpaid time off or used a little vacation time they had. Maybe they need the money, and so they're not able to take the time off, she said. Of course, there are situations where breastfeeding supports are possible at work, but a lot of our families work in settings where that might not feel possible. Breastfeeding takes work and time, and it's not easy for everyone, especially if you have underlying medical conditions or other factors. We definitely see a big drop-off over time. This current shortage is not affecting everyone equally, she said. Black, so-called black, infants are much more likely to utilize formula and live in households with economic hardship, which, given the limited supply, is so challenging. Right. Esau don't like Jake, man. Esau wants to see the end of Jake, right? Verse 16, here's the point. And he said, Pharaoh said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew woman, right? When you're about to deliver these Hebrew children from the Hebrew woman, speaking to the midwives, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live, right? So that was this is an example of the crafty counsel, man. Right? These Edomites, they don't like Jake. They want to see Jake destroyed. Ezekiel 35 verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, perpetual, right? A continuing, timeless, let's look at this word perpetual. Perpetual in the Hebrew, olam. Olam.
Strong's H 5769. Olam. Olam.
Long duration, antiquity, forever, everlasting, right? You get the point. An everlasting hatred, right? Esau, Edom, has for who? And has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith Yahawah power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Right. Esau, Edom has a perpetual hatred for Jacob, the children of Israel, the tribes of the 12 tribes, northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. You so-called indigenous, you so-called Latino, you so-called Negro. Right? Crafty counsel. Right? And this goes back to the birthright. Genesis 27 verse 41, and it reads, and Esau hated Jacob, right, his brother, because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. Right? Esau hated Jacob for the blessing that Jacob received. Right? Remember, Esau sold his birthright for pottage, for red pottage, stew. Right? And Esau said in his heart, in his mind, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. Right. So this is we looked up the word perpetual. Forever, man. From the times of antiquity. Psalms 137 verse 7. Remember, O Lord, all caps Yahawah, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it, even to the foundation thereof. Right. And this is going on. This is the time when the Babylonians was sacking Jerusalem, taking the children of Israel into captivity. Right. Esau, Edom was cheerleaders when that took place. Perpetual hatred. Ezekiel 35 verse 15. As thou didst rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, right? We just read, race it. They were cheering on the destruction of the children of Israel. Because it was desolate, so will I do unto thee. Thou shalt be desolate. O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, right? Esau, Edom. Even all of it, and they shall know that I am Yahawah, Bahasham, Yawashi, right? Ultimately, Esau, Edom going to be destroyed by thermonuclear intercontinental ballistic heat. The missiles, in tandem with the laser beams from the chariots. First Ezra 4 verse 43. Then said he unto the king, remember thy vow which thou hast vowed to build Jerusalem in the day when thou camest to the kingdom, and to send away all the vessels that were taken away out of the Jerusalem, with Cyrus set apart, when he vowed to destroy Babylon, and to send them again thither. Here's the point. Thou hast vowed to build up the temple, which the Edomites burnt, when Judea was made desolate by the Chaldees, right? Edomites burnt down the temple when the Babylonians were mowing through the children of Israel, the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Amos 1 verse 11. Thus saith Yahawah, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, right? Esau, Edom, pursued his brother, Jacob, with the sword. What's the sword? Killing instrument. What's today's sword? The gun. And did cast off all pity, right? He had no pity. And his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever, right? Once again, perpetual hatred, man. So when we see these things, these news reports coming out, right? Right? And they're straight telling you it's the tribes that this is affecting the most. Right? Perpetual hatred, man. Amos 1 verse 12. But I will send a fire upon Teman, right? Right? Teman in the ancient world were the wise of the house of Edom, of the house of Esau, right? Today's world is the Germans, right? The nuclear physicists, right? The top scientists of Esau, right? But I will send a fire upon Teman, right? Symbolic of the wisdom of Esau, Edom, which shall devour the palaces of Basra, right? America. America the Great, Babylon the Great, will be destroyed by thermonuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles. Thus saith the scriptures. Isaiah 47 verse 6. I was wroth with my people, right? The children of Israel. The Most High, Yawashi, wroth, pissed off with his people, who are the Israelites. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand, right? The hand of these other nations, beginning with Esau, Edom. Thou didst show them no mercy, right? No mercy, right? You look into secular history, the amount of atrocities committed on the house of Israel, Israel being a people before a place. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke, right? Hardcore, grievous subjection, man. Numbers 20, verse 17. Let us pass, I pray thee, through thy country. This is Moses speaking to the Edomites. We will not pass through the fields or through the vineyards, right? And this is during their 40 years in the wilderness, you know? Neither will we drink of the water of the wells, right? After they came out of Egypt, right? We will go by the king's highway. We will not turn to the right hand nor to the left until we have passed by thy borders, right? Asking for passage, asking the Edomites for passage. Can we pass through? You know, we're weak. We just came out of Egypt. Can we pass through? And Edom said unto him, thou shalt not pass by me, lest I come out against thee with the sword, right? And what is Esau's blessing? His sword, right? Esau refused passage to Israel when they were weak, fresh out of Egypt, right? Right. But yeah, that's it on that, man. Just wanted to touch on that. You know, these Edomites don't care. They don't business. They have a perpetual hatred for Yasharala. Stay prayed up, pray without ceasing. Kwam Yasharala, Wa Abad, Baba, Shalom.